presenter is going to take us over to the USA, and that is Mark Bojanjak, Executive Chairman of PolarX. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you. Always good to have an excuse to put a tie back on, by the way. It doesn't happen enough these days. Since I started life as a chartered accountant many years ago, I don't often wear them anymore. It's kind of a protest against it. PolarX, copper and gold in USA. We're there for a very good reason, and that is it's a safe jurisdiction, and it's some of the best exploration tenure you're likely to see anywhere. We're not alone, there's some good other parties there, more of that later. An interesting share register. You'll notice Northern Star sit number 2 at 10.6%. They've been very helpful at the moment. They've just agreed to underwrite a $5 million rights issue to all of our existing shareholders. And it's given the market a lot more confidence than it otherwise would have. I think we're all agreed, there are a lot of juniors here over the last couple of days. There's a lot of people competing for the same oxygen in this space at the moment. You know, every junior's hungry for cash because it's negative cash flow until it's positive cash flow, as we all know. And that requires constant investment. So we're starting to think outside the box there a little and think forward, in that if ASX and the capital markets are going to remain as fractious as they have been, maybe we need to partner up with people that are shoveling dirt at the moment and making healthy cash flow. So I think you'll see a bit more of that in the future. Ruffle Gold Fund are our largest holder. They're a $2 billion gold fund in the UK. They've been supportive, they've been with us from day one. They're not alone, US Global, likewise, top 3, and some large individuals below it. We're a strongly technical-based directorate here, and both of our geologists are doctorate level. They're both specialists in their own field. I'm a chartered accountant. It's simple for me. If it doesn't make sense economically, we don't do it. It's as simple as that. And to date, I've been fortunate enough to be blessed with technical teams over and over, capable of finding projects quickly and efficiently and ultimately turning them into mines. It's not about me, it's actually about them. It's about the science, it's about harnessing that. Where are we? We're in North America. We're there because it's safe. If you're going to find a 40 or 50 year forward project, you need to know you've got your tenure locked in for all of that 50 years. And USA and Australia does that. Now in particular, Australia's great. No, our forefathers have explored most of it 6 or 7 times or more now, whereas in Alaska, there's quite a lot of ground there that's never been explored, never had a drill hole in it, never been soil sampled. That's one of the reasons we're there. If you eyeball a couple of those, there's been some big finds in the last 10 to 15 years. Donlin Creek and Pebble are 80 and 100 million ounces of gold respectively. Now, to put that in perspective, the super pit's about 70, including forward underground. You know, these are big finds, and it's because it's in a massive system, which we know tried and proven area of the Pacific Ring of Fire, and it runs right the way down the South Americas, including into Alaska. Northeast of us is Pogo. Northern Star own that. That's now 5 million ounces at over 12 grams per tonne gold. You know, it's actually yielded very well for them in extending that over the last couple of years. There's us. Now we have 35 kilometres of tenure under our direct control. Now to put that into perspective, that's from here to Blacktown, nearly all of it with copper, gold and silver at surface from soil sampling. The largest of those soil anomalies out to the right is 11 kilometres by 8, and it has never had a drill hole into it. Where are we? Those 2 blue boxes at the bottom, at Zackley and Caribou Dome. 2 things you note about that. They both daylight. They were both discovered in the 60s, 70s and 80s. They had very little work on them at all except for us. We've joined them together and have sought to make something that's at least economic today, even though they're metallurgically different. There's about 11.2 million tonnes. At Caribou Dome in particular, the resource is 3.1% copper. And that's roughly, 8 to 10 times the average copper grade mined worldwide. It daylights and it's 4 to 5% copper from surface. It's very high grade material. And for that reason, we think there's going to be a very good margin from mining that. The takeaways here is that's a big patch of ground and very fertile territory. There is a lifetime of work to be done here. You know, what we're focused on at the moment is very much what I term the low-hanging fruit. It's the things that are obvious that would have been done in Australia 50 years ago. Where do we sit in terms of grade at Caribou Dome? Well, our actual computed head grade was actually 3.6%. There are, I think there's a dozen odd copper mines worldwide there. Some like DeGrussa have largely come to life end. But we're well in the club with the sorts of grades we have. And we're not in DRC, we're not in South America, we're not in Asia, and we're not in some of the more risky jurisdictions with different challenges. And I put it to you, at the end of the day, you can engineer against cold weather, you can engineer against most things, but you can't change politics. So, you really do need to, if you're going to find a 40 or 50 year period forward, pick a safe jurisdiction. I can't stress that enough. We wrapped a scoping study around this just recently. We published this, I think, on 18th of January. That said goodbye to my Christmas holidays, because guess what I was doing with our team? It's good margin. You expect that at this grade, even at this small scale. It's 2.3 billion Australian dollars gross revenue. It nets 1.3. There's a 226 million build cost. We pay that back in 18 months, and there's an internal rate of return of nearly 74%. You don't see those too often. And it's because of the grade. It's the margin, and we think there's a lot more of it. Looking forward a little, we can extend what we're seeing at Caribou Dome, and we know that even adding just another 2 million tonnes, which is really not a very big volume, would add another 200 million to that NPV at the moment, which is currently 625 million Australian dollars at a 7% discount. So we think we're going to add a lot to this and even double it in the immediate future. We ran these numbers at what were current gold prices at Christmas time. At $1,900 gold, 8,500 copper. Well, gold's 21.50 these days, and copper's nudging 9,000. Rerun the numbers, you'd probably add another $80 million NPV to it right this second if you were to do that. That's Caribou. Two things characterise that really. One is it daylights. There's 4 and 5% copper at surface there. The last hole we put into it was 19 metres at 7%. Now, our resource is 3.1%. It's largely based on historic drilling. And we've definitely found that our drilling tends to report higher grades than the historic. And I think one of the reasons for that, according to our technical guys, is just the methodology used in assay. It seems the older assays undercalled the actual grade. But we'll find out as we do more and more drilling. But at this stage, we've got a head grade in our model of 3.6% copper. And, it's resoundingly robust in the bit we mine. 85% of that's in measured and indicated. We've only measured it at the moment from surface down to 300 metres. Now, we know there's more than that there because we've at least seen some intercepts down to 450. What we need to do is infill that, push it deeper and extend it at strike. And that's what we're setting about doing this season. Similarly, exactly, it's copper and gold over here. It's about 1.6 grams per tonne gold plus 1.1% copper. And that sort of averages roughly 3% copper equivalent again. We don't usually use copper equivalents on this project, which either speak in copper or gold terms, but our scoping study I showed you earlier contemplates taking both those projects with the existing tonnage already defined and doing nothing more than crushing it, grinding it, floating it, and sending a concentrate off-site. So it's pretty vanilla by all standards. Zackley 2 is wide open. I'm not going to labour tonnes and grade or intercepts here because it's boring and it's too difficult to see, but the bit to the left there in the red is the existing 4 million tonne resource would be reserve at Zackley. All of the stuff to the right, and there's 2.8 kilometres of it, are surface drill holes we've put in the last couple of years, just to see how far this thing extends at strike. We know it carries depth, because we've seen some of that. But usually where there's strike, there's also depth, so you can sort of join the dots to a degree. Some of those are 50-metre intercepts from surface at 3 grams per tonne gold. And they're not alone. They need infill drilling, so we can ultimately add them to the resource reserve base. So a lot of upside there. There's probably more upside there than Caribou Dome. Harking back to what I was saying earlier, this is actually a great big porphyry copper gold system. That 11 by 8 kilometre anomaly you see up to the top of the screen there on the right has never had a drill hole in it. It's a screaming target. There are a number of likely porphyry intrusions there. The fact that Zackley is actually a copper and gold skarn is proof that it's come from a porphyry system. So we're very much keen in the future to go and pursue the big targets. In the meantime, because we're a junior, we've been necessarily focused on what we can get on with a relatively limited cash flow available to us. We did put one porphyry hole in though up at Mars, and to go back to a hole, Mars is out to the left here on that. It's not even the biggest anomaly. Now it had some very obvious geology in it because you could see it. You know, there's malachite staring you in the face at surface. We got half a hole into that. We're actually snowed off it at the time. It was very late in the season, and we thought we're not going to die wondering. So we got out there and started drilling that, and we got a whole 4 days out of it before we had to pull the rig. But we're in the halo of a porphyry system, so it's definitely live. I want to take you on now. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. Bear with me. To Nevada. We are surrounded by existing gold deposits in Nevada. Most Australians don't realise this, but 75% of the gold produced in all of the USA comes from Nevada, and they're big, low-grade positions that are very free milling with decent recoveries. So all of the world's majors are operating there. We sit hard up against a 5 million ounce, oops, the other way again, hard up against a 5 million ounce deposit. They have drilled right up to our boundary. Now what sticks out there is the sort of grade they're mining. It's 0.4 of a gram per tonne's their head grade at the moment. And they're doing that because it's heap leach. It's easy to dig, it's easy to leach, and it still gets decent recoveries. Now they've had 20 odd years or more out of that, so it's coming close to by an end. What we've got up the hill didn't look like that at first. It's very high grade in rock chips. And everybody knows rock chips have some human bias to them because you take the prettiest looking rocks and go and assay those, right? Hasn't been worked in 100 years. Nobody's really done anything to it since 1920 where we are. It's been owned by one family for the last 50 years and they're prospectors. We went on site and thought, okay, some fanciful grades there, the highest of which is 100 ounces per tonne in a rock chip. I've never seen anything like it, nor have our guys. We went and did our own samples as well. We did 100 rock chips ourselves, and we can go and replicate 100 grammars out there time and time again. I think our top grade in a rock chip was 400, but it wasn't really what we were looking for. You'll see we're north of a 400 million ounce silver mine with 3 million ounces in gold credits. And in between them and us is what we think is currently a 10 or 12 million ounce, privately owned, not yet mined, in the same geology as us. And as I said earlier, we're hard up against a 5 million ouncer. You know, this is a whole Kalgoorlie in the making here for somebody in the future, we think. Moving forward, there's us aerially. I'm going to go forward and come back one. The first thing we did here, since nobody had done anything in modern sense in a century, is soil sampled the whole thing. You know, blind 50 metre square grid samples, threw them into a sample bag off to the lab. And that threw up a soil anomaly in both gold and silver, roughly 3 by 2 kilometres. So a huge patch, never had a hole into it. I'm going to jump forward a couple of slides in that we could see, I think I'm going forward, the worst driver here possible. We could see also these quartz veins all over the property. Now they're the things that carry the ridiculous grades I spoke of earlier. But the dream for us has simply been this: look, we know they're high grades. Now the thing that usually goes wrong when you're trying to mine narrow high grade like that is you've got a massive amount of mine dilution. You might have a 100 gram seam, but by the time you get a 6 metre working face into it with big equipment, you've diluted it substantially with waste. The difference here is this: what would be waste between those things is actually carrying grade, we think, just like it is for the neighbours. So there's resident grade everywhere. And that really can make a difference here, because the ultimate dream here for us, which we're seeking to prove with drilling, is that you can probably take all of it. And what would be waste carries grade, so effectively you end up with a minimal, if anything, strip ratio. The first thing we did following the soil samples was went and drilled some of it. We needed proof of concept. We drilled 200 metre centres and we got low-grade gold everywhere. And one of those holes was 124 metres at 9 grams. So we have proof of concept. There's high grade within low grade. And that's really stimulated our thought process, and maybe we can take this whole hillside. We then did some IP work on it. We did that because we knew higher grade gold equals higher grade sulphides, and they respond to IP. And what you're seeing there is 2.7 kilometres of anomaly and strike length, by almost a kilometre wide, overlaying that massive soil sample I showed you earlier. And really what that's saying to us is, look, that's likely to the highest grade background material within the low grade veins. We've also cut a trench across some of that, and we've got 77 metres at 1.1 grams per tonne in surface depleted material. We've yet to drill it, but there's a mass amount of uplift there. So that's it, PolarX in a nutshell. For immediate prospectivity in terms of mining, you've got our two near mine deposits in Alaska. For a massive upside, you've got the porphyry story in Alaska. And for something with an enormous amount of uplift for a relatively small amount of money in the near term, we've got Nevada, in some of the most fertile ground in the world. Thank you.
Thank you.